All right, guys, so this will be my first YouTube video. Please bear with me. I'm gonna be learning this process and also just new to it, so it's gonna take some time. But what I plan on doing is filming fishing content, tournaments, practice days, fun fishing, and a lot of tricks and tips that I've learned over the years. And hopefully you can share with me some of yours also in the comments, and I can learn things too, because I'm still learning every single day. Today I want to talk about the Alabama rig. It's a bait that is thrown all over the country. In particular in the spring, winter months seems to be the best. I, for one, throw it almost all year round, and I have success with it almost all year round. It's just, you got to have the confidence and know the places to throw it. So I've learned a lot about this bait over the years. I have a lot of confidence in it, and I feel like I could help some of you guys understand that are new to it, or maybe teach some of you that throw it a few things that I've learned, and then you can tell me some things that you've learned, and we'll all be better fishermen at the end of the day. So we'll start out with how many different types there are. There's all kinds of different types, brands. I'll run through the ones that I use in particular, and the first is gonna be a weighted with the spinner. Like this is a JH tackle made in Mableville, Arkansas. And then they also have one that doesn't have a weight, same thing, but it has no weight. The Strike King Titanium, it has the spinners and the arms, the titanium arms that stay, they're springed out. And then the Strike King Titanium without spinners, they have this one too. It's a lot more flimsy than the other one, and I'm not quite sure why on that. The most popular is probably going to be your Yum Flash Mob Junior. That is the one that everybody throws, and it resembles this JH tackle. The JH tackle resembles the Yum, but this is a lot more rugged, a lot heavier duty wire, a lot heavier duty snaps, and it seems to hold up a lot longer. For the same price, I typically go with the JH tackle. Now, when it comes to choosing which rig I'm going to throw is going to depend on what I'm fishing. Am I fishing a tournament? Am I fishing for fun? If the tournament I'm fishing, can I fish with 5 hooks or 3 hooks? Same thing with state laws. A lot of states have where you can only have 3 hooks. So I've got some tricks to help you maybe catch more fish with that rule in place. When I'm going out and I can use 5 hooks, I'm going to be using the Strike King Titanium. The reason I'm going to use this bait is because it's so spread out. The fish or the baits are away from each other, and it gives the presence of a big school of shad. And I think that is key in standing out in the water whenever a bass is watching it or looking. They see a big wad of shad versus a small wad. You got more of a chance of them to react to it. The JH tackle, the wire, and the other ones, the wires come back together, and it gives you a smaller, tighter ball of shad. And I typically throw this whenever I'm going to be fishing a BFL or somewhere that I can only have 3 hooks. And I'll talk about that a little bit. The Strike King Titanium with no spinners, or any A-rig with no spinners, I will throw that on a day, to me, when there's no wind, which you really don't want to throw this bait when there's no wind. Wind is your friend with this bait. But I will throw this when there's no wind and I have nothing else to try. The Flash Mob Junior, again, same thing with the JH tackle. The wire's you got a small ball of shad is what you're looking at there. So then we go to the baits. I throw pretty much exclusively Keitech Pro Blue Red Pearl. That color has worked for me from Arkansas to Missouri to Tennessee, Alabama. It's just the color I have confidence in. A lot of people have confidence in other things and they work just fine too. So I don't know that color 100% matters. Now I do know that the size is what's gonna matter. And so I've got 2.8, 3.3, 3.8, and the 4.3. The fall time, the bait seems to be really small and the fish really seem to be finicky that time of year. And I always do best on the small 2.8. And that's just in the fall for Arkansas fishing, that is the one that I usually throw. The 3.3 is another really good all around. You start transitioning when the summer's falling off. you go to 3.3, and then you work your way to 2.8. Same thing in the spring. I will start out 3.3, and then try to, if I can get them to eat the 3.8, that's what I'll usually throw. That is the number one size that I typically throw. And the reason I throw that is because, to me, you've got to stand out and be different than the ball of shad that's swimming and that's live, because the competition you can't compete with. And if you can somehow stand out and be different and catch the fish's eye, in my mind, that's where you get the bites, is by are you gonna eat a dollar menu hamburger, or are you gonna eat a double Whopper? I mean, to me, when you see a bigger swim bait come by, you're gonna grab that first. And that comes to the 4.3. This is the one that I used to throw exclusively until it started wearing me out so fast. Throwing that all day long, you will get wore out quick. So the 3.8, it's bigger than the shad that we have for the most part, and it stands out, and it's not as hard on you to throw all day. The hook size, I throw 3 different weights. These are all handmade. I pour these myself. This is a 16th, 8th, and a quarter. I typically throw 5. If I'm throwing 5 hooks, I'm throwing 5 8-ounce heads most of the time. If I'm fishing really deep, I'll up it to 1 or 2 of them to a 1/4 ounce. And then when I'm fishing a tournament, or I'm fishing shallow, a tournament with 3 hook restraint, I will throw the 16th on the top 2, and I'll explain that a little bit in a minute. But anybody that has live scope, or just fishing with the A-rig a lot, you realize a lot of times the fish don't want the bait. And especially if you got live scope, you learn so much as far as the way fish react. They come from a mile away to eat this bait, typically. And they will, a lot of times, I think they've seen it so many times that they'll just come up and they'll follow it all the way to the boat. You hear people saying they're just trailing it, they're just trailing it. And that happens a lot, and you can try fluttering it, dropping it, and it just never seems to ever get one to trigger. One thing that I've learned, and that I think would help a lot, that will help a lot, and you will see results immediately, is putting a colored hook on your middle wire. Now, a lot of people already put a different color swim bait, or a lot of people put 2 different color swim baits to just try and break up, and they react to that. In a simple solution, that works great, but a simple solution, the same result, is going to be a colored hook. And I have noticed that 75% of the time or more, they will have that colored hook in their mouth. And I put it in the middle simply because if they're going for the middle, they're most likely going to get hooked by something. So that's why I choose the middle hook on that one. So whenever I'm fishing a tournament, or if I'm just fishing, like I said, if I'm just fishing, I throw this with 5 8-ounce heads. But one trick that I have learned in the tournament, in these fish, I think I've learned a lot as far as they hit it from the bottom. So whenever they see it come over their head, they run up and they hit it from the bottom, or they hit it from the back. And so whenever you can only throw 3 hooks, I will throw this rig simply because I can pull my wires down, the top 2 wires down, and that's where I'm gonna have my dummies, on the top 2. I try to get the dummies as close as I can to a hook, so even if they're trying to get the dummy, they get hooked in some way, somehow. It doesn't always work that way. You miss more fish when you've only got 3 hooks. It's how it is. But I will put 3 8-ounce heads on the bottom 2 in the middle, or 3 1/4 ounce, or you can put an 1/8 in there and then 2 quarters on the bottom. And then I will always rig my dummy on a lead head, and not a spring, because the spring hitchhiker, the bait just seems to twist and not run right. So I'll put the 8th or the 16th ounce hook, and then I just simply cut the hook off and super glue the bait to the weight. Same principle, doesn't have a hook in it, but the bait will seem to track because it's got the weight on it. And I will put the top 2 with the 16th ounce, and then vary the other ones with heavier weights. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna make the bait ride low in the water, as far as the hooks are gonna be on the bottom. You can throw it out there, even if it lands upside down with your 16th, it will work its way over to where you're hooked pretty much immediately, where the hooks are on the bottom, so when the fish hit it, they get a hook. That is my biggest tip on BFLs, or where you got states that have restraints on your hooks. And the red hook seems to be the best for me. Chartreuse works too, but the red seems to be the best in the fish, I've seen it on the live scope, they will follow it for a ways, and then they'll finally commit, which usually doesn't happen if you don't have that colored hook. So that is a big tip to me, is if the fish are just nipping at it, or they're doing what I call blowing air on it, and a lot of people can relate. You'll feel like, oh man, that was a bite, because your line will go limp. You'll set the hook, there won't be nothing there. And in my mind, I don't know, I've never seen it done underwater, but I feel like the fish run up there and put a big air pocket, or they stop real fast and it makes the bait go limp. And in their mind, they're trying to kill the shad. And you'll set the hook thinking that you've got one, and you'll miss it. And this hook right here will stop a lot of that from happening. The last tip that I have, or trick that I have to help save your swim baits, and I think a lot of people will appreciate this, because a lot of people already glue their swim baits on there. That's no secret. But what I do is I get my bait. Well, first of all, I'm very particular on how straight my baits are, because I want them to swim perfect and work the way that they're designed. And so I'll run the hook through, and I'll get it on there and get it to where I like it. Now, if you don't like it, you can back it out, get it right. And I get all 5 of them done that way. And then what I do is I simply pull the bait back down, take your super glue, which the super glue that is my choice is the gel control. It just seems to work the best for me. And I put just a little dab on the collar, and I'll push it up there. And then what I do is put the glue in the trough in front of the hook. Now, you can do like a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch of glue. And what that is gonna do is it's gonna put, it's gonna put a tougher area right here for the bait to pull on the super glue versus ripping the plastic. And that will take this bait from catching 3 to 5 fish to catching 10, 15, 20 fish on one swim bait by simply filling that with super glue. And you can fill it with super glue and throw it right in the water, because the only thing is the super glue dries white in the water, but that doesn't affect the fish from my experience. So that's just a few of my tips and tricks. I do think a lot of people throw it on big rods, and I do. The rod is another big key factor in that. I'm not going to pull out a rod today or show or explain, but I use an 8-foot heavy action rod. And the A-rig is something that I've thrown. Everybody should be throwing it. A lot of people get aggravated when think that it's cheating, but in my mind, if you're not throwing it and it's legal in the tournament, you're probably going to get beat by it, or you're going to lose money because of it. So you might as well join the party and start throwing one too. So I hope this video will teach you a few things, and let me know in the comments some of your tricks that you have figured out over the years. And hopefully I'll see you on the water. Thank y'all.